Imagine you are standing in the middle of a dusty, sun-baked village square. In the center of this square is a single stone well. This is our anchor. This well is the lifeblood of everything we are about to discuss. Every bucket of water pulled from its depths represents a win, a success, or a moment of joy. In our modern world, we have been trained to look at this well with a very specific kind of fear. We have been taught that the well is finite. We believe that if your neighbor pulls up a full, slopping bucket of cool water, there is exactly one bucket less for you. This is the zero, some ghost. It is a haunting that lives in the space between your ribs. Think about the last time someone you love achieved something massive. Maybe they got the promotion you wanted. Maybe they bought a house while you are still renting. Maybe they just look happier than you feel. In that moment, did you feel a sudden, sharp pinch in your chest? That is the ghost. It is a biological calculation happening faster than your conscious thought. Your brain sees their full bucket and immediately registers a drought in your own future. We are starting here at the personal layer because this is where the system breaks down first. In the West, we often view competition as the ultimate fuel. It makes us run faster, it makes us work harder, but there is a hidden tax on this energy. When we view the well as a limited resource, every time someone else drinks, we feel a tiny bit more thirsty. This creates a specific kind of internal friction. We call it jealousy, but it is actually a structural error in how we perceive reality. We are looking at the success of others through the lens of subtraction. If you win, I must be losing. If you are beautiful, I am becoming ugly. If you are loved, I am being forgotten. This logic turns our most intimate relationships into a quiet battlefield. You might say the right words. You might say, I am so happy for you. But the ghost is still there. Your body knows the truth. Your eyes might tighten. Your posture might stiffen. You are performing joy while feeling a sense of theft. This is why gestures often hurt more than forgotten promises. A promise is a mistake of the mind, but a cold gesture in a moment of victory is a confession of the soul. It reveals that you see your loved one as a competitor for the last drop of water in the well. We have to ask, what does this cost us? Every time you feel that sting, you are burning cognitive energy. It is exhausting to be a guard at the well. It is draining to constantly measure the water level in everyone else's bucket. This energy is being diverted away from your own creativity, your own rest, and your own capacity to actually taste the water when you finally get some. The zero, some ghost tells us that we are separate. It tells us that the walls of our skin are the hard boundaries of our existence. It suggests that my happiness and your happiness are two different liquids that cannot mix, but this is the fundamental glitch in the system. By treating joy as a private hoard, we ensure that we are always running low. In this chapter, we aren't looking for a moral solution. We aren't here to tell you to be a better person. We are looking at the mechanics of the machine. The machine is currently set to scarcity mode. In this mode, the success of a friend feels like a personal insult from the universe. It is a glitch that causes the system to overheat. We see this in the way we communicate non-verbally. When the ghost is present, our empathy becomes shallow. We offer thin empathy. It's the kind that only shows up when things are going badly. We are great at being there for people when they fail because their empty bucket makes us feel safe. It confirms there is still water left for us. But thick empathy, the ability to stand by the well and cheer while someone else drinks their fill, that is a much rarer piece of software. We are haunted by the idea that there isn't enough, not enough love, not enough money, not enough light. And so we stand in the square watching each other's buckets with narrowed eyes. We are waiting for the drought. But what if the drought isn't in the well? What if the drought is only in the way we've been taught to see it? Before we can move toward the solution, we have to sit with the cost of the ghost. We have to acknowledge the heavy, gray weight of feeling like the world is a series of subtractions. We have to see how this one thought that your gain is my loss poisons the water before it even reaches our lips. Take a breath, let the tension of the competition fade for a moment. We are back at the village square, but the sun is lower now, casting long, soft shadows across the stone. The heat of the day has broken. You are sitting on a low wooden bench a few yards away from the well. There is a woman named Ilara. She is someone you have known your whole life. You watch as she walks toward the center of the square, carrying a heavy, empty bucket. Her movements are slow but rhythmic. You know she has had a hard season. You know her fields have been dry. You see her hook the bucket to the rope and begin to lower it into the dark. Listen to the sound, the creak of the wooden crank, the distant hollow splash as the bucket hits the surface far below. The sound of the rope stretching as she begins to pull. This is the sound of effort. This is the sound of someone trying to sustain their life. Now look at your own hands. They are empty. You have no bucket today. You have no immediate need for water. You are simply a witness. Ilara reaches the top. The bucket emerges, brimming with water so clear it looks like liquid silver in the twilight. It is heavy. It sloshes over the rim, darkening the dry stones at her feet. She stops for a second, catching her breath, looking at the prize she has just pulled from the earth. In this moment, Ilara looks up. Her eyes meet yours across the square. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't shout about her success. She doesn't brag about the depth of her reach or the clarity of her find. She just stands there holding the weight of her win. You have a choice in this silence. This is the moment where the gesture happens. If the ghost is with you, you might look away. You might find a sudden interest in the dust at your feet. You might offer a tight, forced smile that doesn't reach your eyes, a smile that feels like a closing door. You might stand up and walk away, leaving her alone with her full bucket, making the water feel heavier than it actually is. But imagine a different response. Imagine you don't move from your seat. You don't need to run over and help. You don't need to give a speech. You simply meet her gaze and you nod. It is a slow, steady tilt of the head. It is a gesture that says, I see the water. I see how hard you worked for it. And I am glad the well gave it to you. Watch what happens to Ilara's face when you do this. The tension in her shoulders drops. The water in her bucket seems to lose its burden. Because you acknowledged her success without asking for a piece of it, the joy of that water becomes something shared, even though only one of you is drinking. The silence between you isn't a void, it's a bridge. She carries the bucket toward her home. As she passes you, the air feels slightly cooler, slightly fresher. You haven't taken a sip, yet your own throat feels less dry. You haven't moved a muscle, yet you feel lighter. The square returns to its quiet state. The well is still there, deep and dark and patient. The stones where she spilled those few drops are still dark, a temporary map of where success touched the ground. You are still sitting on the bench, your hands still empty, but the atmosphere has shifted. The gesture, that simple, honest nod didn't cost you a single drop of water. It didn't drain your reserves. It didn't make your future thirst any more dangerous. It was a silent signal that the well is working, and because it worked for her, the system is healthy. You sit there in the cooling evening, watching the first few stars appear. You realize that the silence wasn't empty. It was full of a different kind of nourishment. It was the quiet, steady hum of a world where one person's buck, it doesn't make the rest of the village go thirsty. You just sit, breathing in the scent of damp stone and evening air, watching the ripples in your own mind settle into a calm, clear mirror. Now we must look directly into the machinery of the well. We have felt the ghost of competition, and we have seen the peace of a simple nod. But how does the mind actually transition from one to the other? To understand this, we have to look at the internal pipes and valves of our own psychology. We are moving from the personal feeling to the systemic mechanism. This is the logic of Mudita. In the West, we have a very strong concept called empathy, but usually when we say empathy, we mean feeling someone else's pain. We see a dry bucket and we feel a phantom thirst. This is easy for our brains. It feels safe because it doesn't threaten our status, but Mudita is different. Mudita is often translated as sympathetic joy, but it is more accurately described as the internal removal of the barrier between your bucket and mine. Think about the way your body handles its own parts. When your right hand lifts a heavy stone, your left hand doesn't feel jealous. Your left hand doesn't think, why does he get to be the strong one today? Your left hand doesn't feel diminished. Why? Because both hands are connected to the same nervous system, they serve the same life, they drink from the same well. Mudita is the cognitive training that allows you to treat your neighbor, your partner, or your rival as if they are simply your other hand. When we live in a zero-sum system, our dopamine, the chemical of reward, is tied strictly to individual acquisition. I get the water, I get the hit. You get the water, I get nothing. In fact, I get a hit of cortisol, the stress hormone, because the system signals a loss of relative rank. This is a high-cost way to live. It requires you to be the one doing the rope, pulling the rope, and winning the prize every single time just to feel okay. It is a recipe for permanent exhaustion. Mudita flips the circuit. It is a hack for the human reward system. If I can successfully train my brain to see your success as an extension of the system I belong to, I get to tap into your dopamine for free. When Alara pulls up her full bucket at the well, Mudita allows my brain to register that water as a win for the village. My nervous system relaxes. The threat level drops. I am nourished by your nourishment. This is not about being a saint. This is about biological efficiency. Let's look at the friction points. Why is this so hard? The main obstacle is a psychological structure called social comparison. Our brains are constantly running background checks. Am I taller? Am I richer? Am I more liked? This software was useful when we lived in small tribes and needed to know our place in the hierarchy to survive. But in a modern, connected world, this software is constantly crashing. It sees a billionaire on a screen and tells you that your bucket is empty even when it is full. Mudita acts as a decompiler for this software. It asks a simple, surgical question. Does their joy actually take anything from my physical reality? If the answer is no, then the pain we feel is purely a phantom. It is a hallucination of the ego. By practicing the nonverbal gesture, the nod, the relaxed eye contact, the open posture, we are sending a signal back down the wire to our amygdala. We are telling the primitive brain the well is not empty, the village is thriving, stand down. We must also understand the Mudita gap. This is the time between when you see someone succeed and when you decide how to feel about it. In that gap, the ghost usually screams first. It takes cognitive energy to override that scream. This is why it is described as a muscle. You are rewiring the pipes. You are creating a new path for the water to flow. In a competitive system, we are taught that our value is a solo performance. In a Mudita system, value is a shared resonance. Think of a choir. If the soprano hits a perfect glass-shattering note, the alto doesn't feel like a failure. The alto feels the vibration in her own chest. She knows that the beauty of the song depends on that note being hit, regardless of who hits it. The well provides for the song, not just the singer. When we fail to practice this, we create a drought. Even in times of plenty, we feel parched because we have closed the valves to anyone else's success. We become islands of private hunger in a sea of potential connection. This system shift is the difference between a life of constant guarding and a life of constant participation. If you are only happy when you win, you will be miserable most of your life. If you can be happy when anyone in the village wins, your opportunities for joy are multiplied by the number of people around the well. It is the ultimate expansion of resources. It is the move from a scarcity of one to an abundance of many. We have looked at the logic of the well, and we have felt the peace of the square. Now we must look at the interface where these two meet. How does a thought in your head become a feeling in your body, and how does that feeling travel across the village square to someone else? We are talking about the language of the body. In the world of language psychology, there is a concept called linguistic relativity. It suggests that if you don't have a word for a feeling, you might not be able to feel it as clearly. In many Western languages, we are heavy on words for individual triumph and individual failure. We have the word schadenfreude, which describes the dark pleasure we feel when someone else drops their bucket at the well. It is a sharp, jagged word. But we often struggle to find a single, common word for the opposite. We have to use phrases like being happy for you. This requires a lot of effort. It feels like a chore. Mudita, as a single concept, changes the psychology of the gesture. When you have a name for the water being shared, the gesture becomes a reflex rather than a performance. Let's go back to the moment Alara stands by the well with her full bucket. Your brain is a supercomputer that is constantly broadcasting signals. Long before you open your mouth to say congratulations, your body has already written a book. We call this leakage. If the zero, some ghost, is running your internal system, your body will leak that information. Your pupils might contract, the micro muscles around your eyes, the ones you can't control on purpose, will stay flat. Your shoulders might turn just a few degrees away from the well. These are the gestures that hurt. They hurt because they are honest. They tell Alara that her success has made you smaller. They tell her that because she has water, you feel you are in a desert. Forgotten promises are failures of memory. They are glitches in the calendar, but a cold gesture in a moment of joy is a failure of connection. It is a signal that the interconnected circuit has been cut. When we integrate Mudita into our personal layer, we start to use body language as a deliberate tool for system health. Think about the nod we discussed earlier. Why does it work? Because a nod is a physical submission to the truth. You are moving your head in agreement with reality. You are saying, yes, there is water. Yes, you have it. Yes, this is good. This is where language and biology meet. When you choose the gesture of the nod, or the open palms, or the relaxed gaze, you are engaging in proprioceptive feedback. You are telling your own nervous system that you are safe. You are using your body to convince your brain that there is no emergency at the well. In cultures that prioritize interconnected joy, the gestures are different. They are often more subtle. They don't require high energy cheering or loud celebrations. In fact, a loud celebration can sometimes be a way of making the moment about the person cheering. Look how great a friend I am because I am shouting for you. True mudita is often silent. It is the quiet eye. It is the ability to stand in the presence of someone else's light without trying to pull it toward yourself or feeling shadowed by it. It is the realization that if the person next to you is shining, the whole square is brighter. You don't need to be the lamp to benefit from the light. We see this in love. In a relationship, if one person wins a prize, the ghost says now they are better than you. They might leave you. You are falling behind. But the Mudita integration says our household just gained a resource. The well in our backyard just got deeper. If you can't say the words because they feel stuck in your throat, start with the shoulders, drop them, turn toward the person. If you can't manage a smile, manage a steady gaze. These non-verbal choices are the primary language of empathy. They are the silent echoes that tell the other person their joy is safe with you. When you make the success of another person safe, you become a sanctuary. People begin to bring their full buckets to you because they know you won't try to tip them over or eye them with hunger. This is how the personal gesture begins to change the system of the village. You become a node in the network where joy doesn't die, it expands. You are no longer just a person standing near a well. You are part of the water's journey. Step back for a moment, let the sharp edges of logic and biology soften. We are looking at the village square again, but this time we are seeing it from a great height. We are observing how the air changes when a whole community decides that the well belongs to the collective thirst. In this village, the morning ritual is quiet. You see people emerging from their homes, carrying their empty buckets, but there is no rushing. There is no crowding at the mouth of the well to be the first one there. There is a strange liquid grace to the way they move. They move like a single body. You see an old man reach the well first. He is frail and the rope is thick. He begins to pull, but his pace is slow. In a competitive world, the people behind him would be checking their watches. They would be shifting their weight, sighing, creating a field of invisible pressure that says, "Hurry up, you are taking my time." They would be seeing his slow bucket as a blockage in their own success. But watch this village. The woman standing behind him doesn't look at her feet. She doesn't check the sun to see how much of her day is being wasted. She places a hand lightly and without a word on the old man's shoulder. It isn't a push, it is a grounding. She is lending him her balance so he can focus on his strength. She is watching his bucket rise with the same intensity she would use for her own. When the bucket finally clears the rim, a small cheer doesn't break out. Instead, there is a collective exhale, a shared softening. They all see the water. They all know that because the old man has been fed, the wisdom of the village is preserved for another day. His win is their safety. As the sun climbs higher, you see the children playing near the stones. One child finds a beautiful, smooth pebble, a tiny treasure from the earth. He holds it up, shouting in delight. In our world, another child might immediately look for a bigger stone or try to snatch the first one away, feeling the sting of not having found it first. But here the other children gather around, they touch the stone, they marvel at its color, they treat the discovery as if it happened to all of them at once. The joy isn't divided by the number of children, it is multiplied. The square is filled with the sound of many voices celebrating one small thing. You notice that in this civilization, the architecture itself is different. The houses don't have high, jagged fences. The windows face the square, not away from it. The wells are not hidden in private gardens. They are the heart of the public space. This is a society built on the Mudita mechanism. They have realized that guarding a private hoard of happiness is like trying to catch the wind in a cage. It only works if it is moving. In the evening, the villagers gather for a meal. One family has had a magnificent harvest. Their table is overflowing with grain and fruit. Another family had a blight. Their table is sparse. In a competitive civilization, this is the moment of shame and pride. The rich family would feel a secret ego boost, and the poor family would feel a corrosive envy. But here, the families move the tables together. They don't donate food. That would imply a hierarchy. They simply merge the resources. They recognize that the blight on one field was a loss for the whole village, and the bounty on the other was a gift for the whole village. They eat from the same plates. You see a young man who has just been chosen for a high honor. He is glowing. He sits in the center of a circle of elders. They aren't giving him advice or telling him not to let it go to his head. They are simply sitting in his glow. They are warming themselves by his achievement like it is a communal fire. They don't see him as a threat to their status. They see him as a new lamp that has been lit in their home. This is a civilization without the drought of the soul, because they have mastered the silent gesture, the nod, the hand on the shoulder. The shared gaze, they have eliminated the friction that burns most societies to the ground. They don't spend their energy fighting over the rope. They spend their energy deepening the well. As the moon rises over the square, the village falls silent, but it is a heavy, rich silence. It is the silence of a people who know that when they wake up tomorrow, they don't have to fight for their place at the water's edge. They are already part of the flow. You look down at this peaceful scene and realize that the well was never just a hole in the ground, it was a mirror. And for the first time, the reflection is clear. We return now to the cold, hard mechanics. We have seen the village, but we must understand the engine that drives it. This is the system layer at its most efficient. We are looking at the feedback loop of joy. If the zero, some ghost is a leak in your fuel tank, Mudita is a turbocharger. Let's analyze the energy math of a single moment at the well. When Alara pulls up her bucket, there are two ways the system can process this event. In System A, the competitive loop, you see the water and your brain triggers a status threat. Your body prepares for a fight. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tense. You are burning calories to maintain a state of defensive alertness. You then have to spend more energy to mask this feeling, to perform a fake smile, to act like you aren't bothered. By the time Alara has walked past you, you are chemically and psychologically exhausted. You have gained nothing, and you have lost significant internal resources. This is a system of diminishing returns. It is a slow death by 1,000 pinches. Now look at System B, the Mudita loop. When Alara pulls up her bucket, you consciously choose the nod. You trigger the interconnected circuit. Because your brain perceives her gain as a collective win, it doesn't trigger the stress response. Instead, it triggers a parasympathetic response. Your heart rate stays low, your muscles remain relaxed. But here is the breakthrough. You actually receive a secondary dopamine hit. Scientists call this reflected reward. Your brain's reward centers light up simply by witnessing her satisfaction. You are essentially stealing joy from the environment without taking anything from the owner. You have gained energy and you have spent almost none. This is an additive system. It is a perpetual motion machine of well-being. Why does this matter for the structure of our lives? Because energy is finite. Every minute you spend resenting someone else's full buck, it is a minute you cannot spend deepening your own well. Jealousy is a form of cognitive friction. It slows down every other process in your life. it makes you a worse problem solver, a less creative thinker, and a more fragile partner. When we talk about why gestures hurt more than forgotten promises, we are talking about the integrity of the loop. A forgotten promise is a failure of the output, but a cold gesture is a sign that the input system is broken. It means you are no longer able to receive the free energy of the world around you. You have walled yourself off in a private desert, even while standing next to a fountain. This creates what we call social entropy. In a society or a relationship where mudita is absent, the total amount of available joy constantly shrinks because everyone is busy suppressing each other's wins. But in a mudita-enabled system, the total amount of joy expands. The more water Ilara pulls, the more refreshed the whole square feels. The more I celebrate you, the more energy I have to achieve my own goals. We must also look at the inhibitor. Why don't we do this all the time? The inhibitor is the relative rank filter. Our biology is terrified that if we stop competing, we will be pushed to the bottom of the pile. We think the nod is a sign of weakness. We think that by being happy for her, we are admitting that she is better. But the system math says the opposite. The person who can practice mudita is the most powerful person in the square. Why? Because they are the only ones whose happiness is not dependent on their own performance. They are the only ones who can never be truly defeated because they can find a reason to celebrate in any direction they look. They have hacked the well. They have turned the success of their enemies into fuel for their own peace. This is the ultimate insight per minute. Competition is a high-cost, low-yield strategy for survival. Mudita is a low-cost, high-yield strategy for thriving. When you drop the ghost and pick up the nod, you aren't being nice. You are being smart. You are choosing a system that feeds you over, a system that eats you. You are choosing to let the water from Ilara's bucket cool your own skin, rather than letting it burn your eyes. The well is deep, the water is plenty, and the only thing keeping you thirsty is the belief that her drink makes you dry. The sun has set on our village square. The stone of the well is cold now, but the water beneath remains constant. We have traveled from the stinging ghost of jealousy to the quiet nod of shared joy. We have seen how a single gesture can either poison the square or turn it into a sanctuary. Now we must bring the water home. We are at the civilization layer, and this is our integration. Look at the world you live in outside of this story. We are surrounded by screens that act like tiny, high-pressure wells. Every few seconds, they show us someone else pulling up a massive bucket. More money. More beauty, more travel, better children. The ghost doesn't just visit us anymore, it lives in our pockets. It whispers that the world is a series of subtractions, and you are being subtracted most of all. But remember the mechanism we discovered, the pain you feel when you see those buck, it isn't a fact of nature, it is a choice of the system. You are currently running the Western code of individual competition. It is a code that treats joy as a limited battery that only one person can plug into at a time. What if we integrate the Eastern insight of interconnectedness into our very architecture? What if we change the way we look at each other across the dinner table or the office desk? When you leave this conversation, you will encounter a full bucket. Someone you know will win. They will get the thing you wanted. In that split second, the ghost will rise. You will feel that familiar pinch in your chest. You will feel the urge to look away, to offer a half-hearted word, or to point out the flaw in their success. This is the moment of the silent echo. You have the power to change the chemistry of that moment without saying a single word. You can choose the nod. You can choose to see their success not as a hole in your life, but as proof that the well still has water. If the well worked for them, it can work for you. By refusing to be hurt by their joy, you are keeping your own energy tank full. You are protecting your own ability to pull your own rope when your time comes. This isn't about being selfless. It is about realizing there is no self that is separate from the well. When you are happy for someone else, you are essentially investing in a bank that you also draw from. You are making the world a place where joy is allowed to exist, and in a world where joy is allowed, you are much more likely to find some. Consider the impact of this on our civilization. Imagine a culture where we don't need forgotten, promises to be forgiven because our gestures have already made us safe. Imagine a relationship where your partner's highest peak doesn't make you feel like you are in a valley, but like you are both standing on the same mountain. This is the transformation of the silent empathy. So here is the final check of our structural integrity. We have looked at the personal cost of envy. We have looked at the biological efficiency of mudita. We have seen the village that thrives because it shares its light. Now I am looking directly at you. You are standing at the edge of your own square. You have your own bucket and your neighbors have theirs. The ghost is standing right behind you, waiting to tell you that there isn't enough water to go around. It wants you to be tired. It wants you to be thirsty. It wants you to believe that for you to be big, others must be small. I am not going to tell you to be kind. I am not going to tell you to be a better person. I am simply going to ask you to look at the math. Is your current system working? Are you happy being a guard at a well you're too tired to drink from? Or are you ready to try the nod? The next time you see a win that isn't yours, don't look at the bucket. Look at the water. Notice its clarity. Notice its life. Then look at the person holding it. Will you let their joy make you thirsty, or will you let it remind you that the well is full? The choice isn't a moral one. It's a matter of how much light you want in your square. The well is waiting. The rope is in your hands. But before you pull, look around. Who else is there? And are you brave enough to be happy that they got there first?